folks, welcome back to my Arc, and today we are going to chase frame rates a little bit because I'm testing new recording software. And the reason why we're doing this is because in the last video, and I think I called it like Explain in 4K, I said I don't want to worry about frame rates, I just want to go smooth, blah blah blah. And I noticed when I was test flying, everything was quite lovely, but as soon as I recorded and started editing the video, I realized that was not a smooth experience. I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but it was terrible. So I'm like, what the heck happened to my frame rates? Because when I tested it, I was between 30 and 53, depending where I had been flying. But when I recorded it, it was terrible. So I did a test recording, and I was using Bandicam, and not recording was what you see now, 29 to 35 in an area, up to 53 frames. But as soon as I would hit record, it would drop to 15 frames per second. It didn't matter if I was in a rural area, Chicago, New York, Minneapolis, Duluth, like I am right now. As soon as I would hit record, my frames would go to 15. Didn't matter the airplane, didn't matter the weather. And I thought that was really strange. So I went back to 1080p, and I would look at the frames without recording. It was like 70 something. As soon as I hit record, it would only lose one frame. But in 4K, I had a 60% loss of performance, no matter how I configured it. So while I did my test and told you my results were fantastic, that was when I wasn't recording. So when I started recording, it all went to the crapper. So I'm like, what the heck happened? So I started researching things. And the reason why I was using Bandicam was because I paid for it. I paid for Bandicam. Granted, it was 6 years ago or something. And I needed to at the time because free stuff at the time was terrible. And I didn't pay very much for it. And I was getting free updates. So I never thought to look for anything else. Because when you pay for something, you feel kind of obligated to use it. So then I realized I have a desktop NVIDIA card now. As before, I had a mobile NVIDIA card. So why don't I try using ShadowPlay? Because if you have an NVIDIA video card, ShadowPlay is free. It comes with your card, and it has no performance hit. The reason why I wasn't using ShadowPlay with my mobile card is it's really watered down for a mobile card, but for a desktop card, it's the full deal. So that's what we're doing right now. My frame rate, not recording, is 29.997. My frame rate right now, as I record, is 29.9997 if I were to pause the video. So, in fact, I'm up to 30. So with NVIDIA ShadowPlay, there's no performance hit, none at all. And I think the reason why is because everything is already running through the video card, and I think your computer is just recording the video card. Whereas Bandicam, everything's running through the video card, but then Bandicam has to take that information and re-encode it, record it, save it, blah, blah, blah. And apparently in 4K, that's a 60% performance hit. Not like I said, 1080p, I lost one frame, whoop-de-doo. But when we do Flight Simulator and we want to max out our settings, even with a beefy computer like this one, you are required to chase frames. You have to. That's just how it is. You have to record. You have to check your frame rates, because if you drop too low, it's a horrible experience. First-person shooter, you can argue if it's 35 or 60 frames, whatever's optimal. You don't need 120, 100, whatever. Those people are kind of goofy, right? Like I did a Minecraft test the other day, 547 frames per second. I threw everything at it, got it down to 30 or something. That was just for fun. But a Flight Simulator, it's not for fun. You have to have those frame rates. So despite what I said in the last video, never say never, we are going to chase frame rates today. The two things for this video, despite my long introduction, sorry. The two things is we are testing ShadowPlay and we're testing frame rate performance. And if we can stick around 30, we're going to keep it. If we drop below, I'm going to have to test 1080p, and maybe we got to do this in 1080p. But ShadowPlay, you're watching it right now. ShadowPlay is being used to record this with zero performance hit, period. And I think that's just the way the card operates. The other part of this, though, in case you're interested, is I'm not using ShadowPlay audio for some reason. I don't know what it is, but ShadowPlay audio capture for my voice is absolutely horrendous. I don't know what's wrong with it. I researched it. There's supposed to be a static issue. That's not my issue. It's just really awful sound. But I have a really nice microphone, and I was using really nice audio software, so I guess I have the bar set higher. So ShadowPlay, you're not listening to the ShadowPlay audio. You're actually listening to SoundForge because I use Sony Vegas home version to edit. Platinum Suite that I bought, again, a million years ago. I just keep upgrading it. I get SoundForge, not Audacity, but SoundForge, another paid software to record. So what I'm doing is I'm recording audio from ShadowPlay and audio from SoundForge at the same time so I can sync them up. Because ShadowPlay, if you click outside the window, stops recording, then resumes and you click back, so there's gaps. So I'm recording both audio, lining them up in my editor, then I'm deleting the ShadowPlay audio, so what you're hearing is SoundForge interpreting my microphone, because I didn't realize there's going to be such a difference. So I have all the software running with no performance hit. And I've got the flight simulator in 4K with pretty much everything maxed out with no performance hit, and we're maintaining 30 frames per second. Is that going to stay 30 when we're in the air? We're going to find out together. That's the point of this video, is to find out together. And like I said, once you start rendering more objects, if we have to try 1080p, I will concede, because 30 frames per second is way more enjoyable than 15 like I had in the last video without realizing it. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to make it a little earlier in the day. Just a little. We're going to hop inside. We're just going to do a quick start of this thing. Whoa. Whoops. Okay. I redid my presets so that I could see more, because I have a bigger monitor now and I don't have to rely on zooming in so much. So we're just going to quickly get this thing started. This is not the proper way to start this thing. We're just doing the bare minimum just to get up in the air here. So I'm going to get this thing started up and I'll meet you. We'll take off. Something else I wanted to show you as I start this up, though, is when we turn this on. Look, we can see this on our screen now. Remember, this used to be off the screen because of the 4K versus 1080p. It is so nice to be able to see this right now without having to worry about dragging it down. It's the little things. It's the little things that get exciting. There we go. Turn that on. Turn that on. All right, we should be good to go. Our frames are still 29.996. It looks like from here. So we're still doing well. Let's see what happens when we jump outside. 'Cause I had a weird problem the other day. I was testing this when I jumped outside. It dropped down. But no, it's good. We're at a solid 30. And again, if you want to see my settings, if you didn't watch the last video, here are my settings for the simulator. Again, objects maxed out. Detailed reflection turned off because I lose 10 frames per second and I don't give a crap. Parked aircraft, of course, this is as high as I can go, because when I bring this up to the next level, I get exactly half my frames. So that's going to be there. This, I'm not even going to bother maxing out because I do not have a TI card. I just have the 2080 regular. So unless you have a TI version of the 2080 or 1080, you can't even go up here. I max this out here because these other two are handled by FXAA outside of the simulator. However, I did do a test with this all the way up, and I did notice a little tiny difference. If you zoom in on a building far, far away and just zoom in and hold it there, it does make a difference to slide this up. But if you're doing that type of thing, that's not what a simulator is for. So for our intents and purposes, or I like to say intensive purposes, this is all you really need. So I just want to show you that just in case, and then our SkyMaxx Pro settings just in case you didn't see the last video. Like that. That's cranked up, that's cranked up, that's cranked up. This is, for me, the best looking as well as best performing option for overcast. Well, solid performs better, but it looks terrible. Well, everything else is like that. So if we're curious, that's what it is. So anyway, we are testing frame rates. Although I said we weren't going to worry about this, but after my experience in the last video, that's what we're doing. So let's get flaps down. Prop center, we put the props forward. And I think I remember how to fly this thing. Let's just go for it here. And feet on the rudder. Oh yeah, rudder pedals work. Good. I always have to unplug and replug my rudder pedals every time I start the sim. And that was the same way on the old computer too, so it's not a computer thing. Oh wow, this is so much easier to fly than the Cessna. Gear coming in, flaps coming in, and our frames are still at 30. So what we're going to do is we're going to fly east, which will cause us to go towards the city here. And we'll see how smooth this is. So we're still at 30. We're hitting 28 a little bit. But looking good so far. Let's hop outside. Oh, and I finally, again, let me see, there's enough reflection detail for me. I don't need to do anything with that. Again, yesterday when I did this for my practice video, which I normally don't do a practice video, but I'm still learning the new computer and settings. I would get 30 outside of the aircraft, and then 15 inside the aircraft, and then 30 out of the, oh, there, did it, there. Okay, I'll show it. Okay, here we go. See, 15. Check this. Okay, good, it's gonna do it again. Now watch now you tell me if you know what's going on. So we got 15 frames per second, right? Watch when I come back here. 30. See that? Oh, I better do some engine management. We're gonna have a fire. Hang on. Let's bring that stuff back. There we go. Okay, let's do that again. Come up front. 15 frames per second. See that? 15. 14. 15. 14. Let's come back here. 30. Okay. So then I was thinking, well, maybe it's all the objects it's trying to draw, because when you zoom in, like, or move forward, you see more objects, right? So there's 15 frames per second. Now watch this. 30. And this is way more objects than this, because this, you're looking at what's in front of you. This is what's in front of you and under you and behind you. And we're 30 frames. See, 29, 30, 30, 29, 30, 30, 29, 30, 29. Look out the window. 15. Come back here. 30. What? Can anybody tell me what is going on? 15. 30. Let's check out the side windows. 30. 30. 15. 30. And again, this isn't because there are more objects with this view, because look what happens if we go outside. 30. And there's even more objects in this view. So what is the deal? Like I said before in another video, we got very challenging clouds for the computer to deal with. Low to the ground, full everything. Lights are on. It's a Carenado. It's this. I call this a frame rate killer aircraft because it's challenging with performance. So here we are, runway 35 Minneapolis, which I personally have never seen them use runway 35 to take off. So that's where we're gonna do it. So here we go. What are we at? Solid 30 frames per second. I almost feel like I'm locked at 30. You know, maybe I am locked at 30 because of VSync. Because I'm like, I've never gone above 30. I didn't think of that. Because Minecraft I locked at 30 because of VSync. Because that's what the monitors is 30. Maybe this is locked at 30 for VSync. You don't want VSync though, do you? In Flight Simulator? I thought you... Because in Minecraft you have to have VSync or it tears. And you can't even see what you're doing because it tears. But maybe... Oh yes, I do have VSync. That's right. 34, not much difference. Okay, yes, I did put VSync on, and the reason why I did this off camera was because when I was inside, going like this, I was getting terrible tearing. I remember. Okay, that's why we're only getting 30. That's okay. So, whatever. As long as it doesn't drop below 30. So we got 21 in the cockpit. What do we have outside? If I go outside... 30. What if I go up here? See, there it is again. 15. See? 15 out the nose. And then 21 in the cockpit. And 30 outside, but that's because we're not looking at anything. Let's zoom out a little bit and give this some objects to play with. 24. 23, 24, and that's because we're, we're in a heavy area. 23. 15, 21, and again, even if we're looking at, let me do my gyro thing. Okay, so 15, which you think, okay, there are more objects than this, which is 21. There's 15, but let's hop outside with even more objects, and we're at 30, 28, 27, 25, 24. That's still better. That's more objects than out the front. And we're getting 10 more frames. So I don't know what this has to do with anything. Alrighty, anyway, we're going to take off. We already got the flaps, I think. What am I doing? Props. Let's just go for it. Get on those rudder pedals, which I love my VKB Sim rudder pedals so much. I'm still getting used to them. Like anything, takes a while to get used to it. So we're at 21 frames per second, which is not really totally... acceptable, really, if you really want to fly a smooth flying experience, but we rarely fly in areas as heavy as Minneapolis. So if we're only gonna, if we're gonna get 21 frames in Minneapolis because it's super densely packed, I can live with it because most of the time we won't be in a heavy area because, you know, we don't fly many urban areas. So we'll see how this goes. If it is unbearable. I mean, we're going to try 1080p today anyway, just to compare, but let's just see what happens. So we're 21 in the cockpit in Minneapolis. I mean, there's a lot of objects there. Come up here. Again, 15, right, but what do we have outside? Outside, there's 24. Let's come out here. Let's really make this thing miserable. What do we have now? Okay, here we go. What do we got? Now it agrees with looking out the front. There's 15. There's 15. It agrees with it because there's so many objects, but I don't know why it was doing that before when we didn't have many objects. I mean, 15 is not acceptable. It's running below 20. But it, you know, this aircraft is kind of a pain too. Yeah, there's no way we can, I can't do 14, 15 over Minneapolis. So maybe what I might have to do is, and I don't want to turn down objects because the whole point. Okay, look at that. There's 30. Okay. There's 30. So it was really only when like downtown is in there. I mean, this would make sense because look at all those okay, wait a second. There's 30. Wait. Now we're at 30. There's 15 again because our distance is so far. So if I go like this. This is tough because, I mean, yeah, that's pretty bad for frames. That's unusable. But it's not that long, right? Because now we're back up to 30 or 25. Again, it goes to 15 out the window, which is so weird because there's 15 out the window, but this has way more objects. So yeah, that's a tricky one because we don't want to drop below 20. But if we are in a good sized urban area like Minneapolis, we don't, you know, do we just live with it for the very, very short time we're flying into Minneapolis? Because I don't want to turn on objects. That defeats the purpose of having, you know, flying in an urban area. Do we just live with this for a little bit? See, there's 25 if I come back here. What if I look out the window? 27, 28. Now it dropped down as I draw more things. We are really, like, not in the right spot. There we go. What does that look like now? That's more like, let me reset my preview here. So I don't know. This is a tough one because 99% of the time, the flights we do in 4K are going to be 30 frames per second, locked in by maxed out at 30 frames because of VSync. I really don't want to drop down to this 14 business though, even if it's for a little tiny bit. Well, let's see if maybe it's, oh, see, there's 30 now. Well, that's because we have fewer objects. Where is this airport anyway? I'm kind of like lost because we're zoomed in so far. Let's see if it's the aircraft or not. So let's restart in Minneapolis in the Cessna, see what happens. So here we are on the Cessna, 22 frames. So it's not really any different than the Carenado. We'll just see how it goes here. But let's just see what happens. So now we're at 24 frames. It should die soon. See what happens outside here. So there's hitting 30. No, we're still at 25. So we are performing better than the Carenado, which is to be expected. I mean, that B1900 is known to be a performance killer. So this is completely acceptable. Like, this is fine. We can fly like this if I don't pan. We can fly like this. Well, that's 25 frames. That's why. So outside, now this is how it should work, right? We got 25 frames inside. Okay, now we're up to 30. What's going on? Here we go. So we got, no, now we're up to 30 again. Now we're down to 15. Okay, so we're at 15 outside because of all the objects. We're at 24 inside because it's drawing fewer objects. Now the Carenado wasn't like that. The Carenado was the opposite. See, now we got, okay, see, now this would make sense. 16, 15, that's what the Carenado did, and then it got better. That would make sense. But We come outside. Nope, same thing. Same problem the Carenado is having. So it's not a Carenado problem. Let me clear my doggone gyro thing. That was interesting. Okay, so for a second we were at 30. Now we're down to... See, now it's 22, then 15. Then 22, then 15. So I don't think it's a Carenado problem. Let's see. Okay, now we're at 28. Okay, anyway. So yeah, we are literally chasing frame rates around the city is what we're doing. So... I don't know. Do we want to live with it for a few minutes? You know, because look, now we're back in that 30. So it was only 45 seconds we had to deal with crappy frame rates flying in an urban area. Right? It wasn't, I mean, it stinks. But it was only, see, now we're back up again. Let's see if I can kill it again. Granted, too, we're flying a little bit lower. Okay, now nope, there's 19, 20, 23, 16. That is really jumping around. 15. So the question is, for the benefit of flying in 4K, do we remain in 4K and just deal with 30-second to 45-second blips of awful frame rates? Or do we go to 1080p and always have awesome frame rates? That's a tough one because, like I said, once you fly 4K, you never want to go back. Okay, let's see what this looks like. A little bit of sunset. Yeah, see, that's 15 frames per second. Is that below 20? We can't like do IFR stuff because of the timing. But it's not 8 frames. It's 15 frames. And we have everything maxed out. And if I don't pan, I don't move, it looks very smooth. As if I pan, that it looks awful. And then we're back up to 30, of course, because there's nothing to draw. And we'll be fine. Yeah, we're at 24, 25 coming in for landing. There's not a problem here. 27. So what happens if I look out the window at downtown? Whoa. If I look out the window at downtown, we have 15 frames, which again, slows down real time. But if I don't pan, that's fine. Even on my 55-inch monitor, I don't really see any jitters. We look forward again. And we're back up to 25. 27. We can land with 27. That's not a problem. All right, so now let's bring up. Oh, there's a guy taking off on the same runway I used. Huh. Yeah, we're at 26. This is completely usable. This is completely usable. Oh, see, okay, here's doing that weird thing again. 15, 26. Now it's staying at 26. Isn't that weird? That is so weird. But yeah, this is completely acceptable. Look how smooth that is. Everything maxed out. Landing in a heavily urban area. We can see downtown St. Paul now. We come down here to see downtown Minneapolis. I mean, we are riding the edge. We are riding the edge of the frame rate war here. But it's usable and acceptable. So far, yes, it stinks to go down to 15 frames per second when we go over the heaviest areas. But it's only for like 30 seconds or 45 seconds at a time. And it's never, you know, if we land in something like this, we'll be, you know, we'll be focused on landing, we'll be low to the ground. So I think that's completely acceptable. So let's jump to 1080p now and see what those frame rates are. Again, they're going to be locked at 30 for VSync. But let's jump to 1080p and see if it's just that much better. Alright, so here we are in 1080p. Now, first disclaimer, The video in 1080p probably looks worse than it normally would, because this is the same video in terms of editing, the same project as my 4K video section of this video. So it's 1080p as I record it, but it's put into the 4K project. So we are not judging quality of video in this section of this video because of the whole project rendering thing. All we're looking at right now are frame rates. That's all we cared about. But otherwise, what it looks like for me, 1080p compared to 4K, totally different experience. So what we're looking for now is frame rates. I did turn off VSync just to see how high they get. And I believe when I turned off VSync for a second before, they were 34. So we gained 10 frames per second just downscaling 4K to 1080p. So we didn't gain as much as I thought we would. But again, remember, all the settings are maxed out, more or less. So, okay, so here we go. There's St. Paul. Let's get towards Minneapolis and see if this thing bogs down. If it gets below 20 in 1080p, we're going to 4K all the time. I just want to see what happens. But see the tearing? This is why we need VSync. Yeah, so let's so we know it can hit 40 when that's around 30, so doesn't matter. Let's turn VSync back on. VSync, it'll lock it at 30 maximum, which is fine. Yeah, that's much better. Much better. So let's see what happens now when we get closer to Minneapolis and see if we drop below 20. Looks like we're not going to drop below 30. Even, well, there's 29, but so same exact settings as we had in 4K. And when we were in this area, we dropped down to 15 because of some weird thing. Oh, there we go. 25. Okay, we had a 25. Now it's back up to 30. There was a 27. So it is dropping as expected. But it's almost 30 all the time. So settings almost maxed out. There's some micro stutters though. Settings pretty much maxed out in an urban area. And we're just hitting that VSync maximum of 30 no matter what. We dropped for a blip, but that was it. So in 1080p, logically, 1080p would be the way to go because it's smooth, it's hitting that 30. There are a lot of micro stutters though. Look at all those micro stutters. But it is hitting 30 frames per second solid with everything nearly maxed out in an urban area in 1080p. So logic tells me I should really probably fly the simulator in 1080p because of performance. Look how smooth that is. Look at that. What's with those micro stutters? That's a separate issue. I did not have micro stutters in 4K. Anyway, so logic tells me use 1080p, then I can have my settings the way I want them and be done with it. But the other part of my brain says, well, 4K looks a gazillion times better than 1080p. So it's worth it to have 45 seconds or 30 seconds of low frame rates here and there to get that 4K experience. Now, if it were always 15 frames per second, that's not acceptable. We would not even consider 4K. But because it's just blips of like 30 to 45 seconds every once in a while, or not even once in a while, just, you know, as we go over a heavy area, I don't know, I might be willing to live with that. So the conclusion is I'm not going to decide anything. I will just do it over time. So we'll start with 4K, do a bunch of flights in 4K, and if I'm like, you know what, I'm really sick of these short episodes of 15 frames per second as we come in for a landing, I'll just jump to 1080p, right? So I don't know, I'm not going to have any conclusion. I'm just going to enjoy it and fly it and enjoy 4K while I can. Now that being said, just for the heck of it, since you're already in 1080p and I have all my recordings set up for 1080p, let's jump to New York City and see what happens with these maxed out settings in New York City. Alright, here we are, New York City with the Drzewiecki Design installed. I did turn on VSync for this just so if we do go above 30, we can see it. So we're at 32 right now. Just looking at the scenery, I was checking VSync issues. So that is the custom scenery installed. We'll see how this goes. Like I said, I expect this thing to be unusable, but since we're in 1080p, like I said, we're just gonna give it a shot, just for fun, just to end out the video this way. We'll see how this goes. Oh boy. I'm so used to the Carenado now. It's way more sensitive on the rudder pedals for this thing. So, oh my gosh, look at all those police, look at all those cops down here. I don't know if my mouse gets recorded. If not, lower right of your screen. So anyway, oh, we're still at 30 frames per second. There we go, 29, 28. We're finally killing it here. We're finally dipping down in frames. Let's pan around and see. No, not that bad. At least it's nice to know I can run one of the more densely modeled cities in the world. Look at that. Well, that's looking over ocean. But it is nice to know with, oh yeah, see, we have clouds on too, by the way. We have really awful weather turned on in terms of performance. So it's nice to know that we can run full settings over the most densely, one of the most densely modeled cities in the world with crappy weather performance-wise and still be pulling 30 frames per second. It's 1080p, not 4K, but it's nice to know we can do it. Look, it's 35 frames per second. This is New York City with maxed out settings with horrible horrible clouds. 34. What? Again, this is because I'm using ShadowPlay. If I were using Bandicam, we'd be getting 10 frames per second. I guess 1080p didn't matter, but look at this. Wow, we might have to do some tours. We might have to do some tours. Let's make it earlier in the day. Yeah, we might have to do some VFR stuff. But even VFR, low level in 4K, our frames would be pretty high if we're low enough to the ground. Look at this, 30. Wow! 32, 31. Again, micro stutters as it loads and draws new things, but we normally don't pan that fast. We normally pan like this. But there's still a boatload of micro stutters. Look at that, 34. This is crazy. Nope. 35. Wow. 36. So there's some micro stutters that will be like 15 then 35 again, and then 28 then 35 again. That might be that threaded optimization setting in the NVIDIA control panel, which I haven't actually played with because I set it in the old computer years ago and haven't touched it since. That might be something I'll investigate, but otherwise, this is crazy. I did not plan on doing a New York City tour today. So those of you who stuck with me through this unusual video, you're getting a treat. Oh, that VSync. Oh, that's why I normally have VSync on, but I just wanted, yeah, let's put VSync back on. I would like to see this in 4K, but we're only going to get like 20 frames per second, so look at this. 30. Again, it's going to max out at 30 because of VSync, so it'll never go above 29,995 or 30. Wow. The last time I was looking at this scenery, I was doing 10 frames per second with low settings in my old computer. So this is an unexpected treat. Look at that. Look at this. Look at those reflections off the buildings. That looks bizarre. Yeah, 30 frames, which means we're going above 30, but we would be if it weren't for VSync. Unbelievable. Screenshot that for sure. Let's make it night while we're here, because we can, and then we'll be done. Yeah, I've never been a fan of, there we go, so I've never been a fan of this at dusk, but night is okay. And this is kind of outdated. This software, this scenery add-on for New York City. I believe they're working on a version 2. Maybe it's even out. Again, I normally don't fly urban areas, so I haven't really been keeping up. So if I'm wrong and it's already available, forgive me, but very interesting. So anyway, we'll sign off from the cockpit today. Hopefully you enjoyed this very unusual video. If you haven't watched any other videos on my channel, please check them out. Normal videos will return next time. We've had several videos now that have been unusual just because of this whole new computer thing, but the next video for sure will be a normal video. So stay tuned for that if you're not a regular subscriber. That being said, if you are a regular subscriber, thank you for tuning in for support. If you are not a regular subscriber, please like, please subscribe, please share with your friends. Join me next time for a normal video. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and the series of videos, the last 3 or 4 videos. And I'll catch you next time.